Welcome to the very first episode of the Soccer Podcast USA. I'm Christina Uncle, and as I said, we are going to be delivering big names, bold opinions as we break down and look at soccer here in the United States. And today, I know we delivered. Olympic gold medalist, coach, 7-time winner with Chelsea in the England's Women's Super League, and now tasked with the heavy burden, yet one that she can carry, winning the Women's FIFA World Cup with the U.S. national team. Take a listen as we talk with Emma Hayes today. Emma Hayes, welcome to the Soccer Podcast USA. You are our first person on this podcast. We saved the best for the first. Great to have you on here. It's been a while since we last talked in the sense of having these deeper conversations. I know the Women's Euros at ESPN that summer over the fire pit, having some great chats. And, really, I don't even know if I have the right to say proud of what you've done and have done before that and since then and what you're going to do. But I'm going to say that. Very, very proud of you and welcome to the show.
No, happy to be here. And I have very fond memories of that time at ESPN. It was a wonderful summer. I don't remember much of the football, but it was a lovely, glorious time in Connecticut.
No, and definitely. And I think one of the biggest things in like doing this show, and it's a new show, everyone's asking, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? Everyone can talk about, which by the way, as everyone knows, you're a great football tactician. Like we could talk about numbers and we can talk about breakdowns of players, but that's really not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about, right, the infrastructure of soccer here in the United States. Yes, for anyone listening outside the side of the United States, football, but here we'll call it soccer for this purposes. But really delving into kind of more of the infrastructure, the deeper end conversations, like the ability that it's not a soundbite, that we can have more of that meaningful conversation. And you stepping in as the head coach of what is considered one of the best teams in the world historically, right? There's a lot of conversations and questions that we can have of like what that looks like. And that's really what we're going to be diving into here today. So so everyone knows now the head coach of the U.S. national team, coming off of an Olympic gold win that you did within less than 70 days while you were managing your other job duties on top of, Harry and co and, going back and forth, which was incredibly impressive. So that's why when everyone says you're too busy, you're doing too many things, I'm like, nope, Emma's working hard. I got to work hard with Emma. But really kind of what I wanted to dive into, because I don't think it hasn't been explored. And I just know I love our conversations is, how you as the head of the U.S. national team, right? You're coming into what is an established team, an established organization, but you're breaking the mold. You're creating a new mold. Kind of like to pick your brain more on that. Like, how are you coming into something that one would consider as established and creating something new that might not have ever been seen before to be able to keep up with the rest of the world?
Well, I think, I'm already building on something. I mean, taking on a team like the US Women's National Team, we all know it's sometimes an almost impossible job because everybody expects the team not only to win, but win by multiple goals, win multiple championships again and again and again. But the reality is, the gap has closed in the women's game, and everyone from Spain to England to Germany, I think, demonstrating that I think one team dominating at the top is long gone, and that's a healthy place for the women's game. But with that in mind, I think the team was on the the back end of a bad run in the World Cup, so it was perfect timing for me to come in. Very open, very receptive, very coachable group that wanted to receive my coaching, and all of those things coming together at the right time, I felt I've reflected on it so many times. When it's your time to win, everything has to go in the right direction for you. And I think that was the case for us, albeit it was a very short amount of time together. And for me, building on the shoulder of giants, which this program is, has meant that I already came in to a program that was, historically strong. So I think that gave me, a massive advantage.
And so, I mean, there's that advantage, and like you kind of say, in my first exposure to kind of the equivalent of the women's compared to outside the world is having done the men's Euros with ITV. And I didn't realize how demanding England is on their men's national team. And for me, that instantly clicked, wow, the way they treat the men's England national team, expecting them to win all the time, even if it's not justified based on the players, the development or injuries, is the same way we in the United States treat our women's national team. It's either gold or you're a failure. Like that kind of feels like that energy. So like, right, no pressure, and you delivered right out of the gate, like we didn't want to do. But going into that, and now, like to your point, building on the shoulders of giants, and the rest of the world having caught up, if at times, sometimes catching and going further, where are you going to develop that next level? I know you've talked about it, the player pool, you being very familiar with the US infrastructure already when it comes to collegiate. Where do you see those opportunities that you can expand your player pool to help build the club to country, development?
I think I've done the job. It's almost the wrong way around. Like I had 70 odd days and then go to an Olympics, and it's felt like the last 4 or 5 months is actually about getting to know the playing pool.
Hmm.
Uh, we have a January camp coming up. It's probably the last camp where I get first looks at players that sit as part of the wider playing pool. And usually, you get months, even years leading up to a major tournament. For me, it's the other way around. Had no time to pick a team to take part in a major tournament, and now I'm getting to know the extended playing pool. But the luxury on my end is that I've got a period of time, probably the next 12 months, where I can really bed that group in and determine, a core group of players that will, be the mainstay of the team going into the World Cup year. But I'm excited about the development part of that because I feel that that's one of the things that's been missing from the program. There's just been a lack of opportunities for lots of players, and that's not necessarily. I mean, we had COVID, we had an Olympic year that was sort of pushed a year later. So that development didn't happen for a lot of players. So I'm hoping to give them that, but also start up an under 23 program, which we will launch in April, and hopefully close the gap in terms of playing cap accumulation for players and give them the experiences I think that they're going to need beyond the core group that I expect to be working with, sort of camp in, camp out.
So, I mean, my background, referee, FIFA referee. Everyone knows me as the referee. And now I have this unique position as the president and general manager of a new professional women's soccer team in the USL Super League. So we both know, like, it's unique for for one country to have two Division 1 women's teams. Like, and now I've always listened when you talked, especially around the fire pit, the club to country and managing Chelsea, and managing the day in and day out versus the country side of it, right? Where you're hoping these clubs are developing players into the national pool player profile. Like, how do you see, or I guess, like, how do we as clubs, right, and kind of the growth and how big this country is, help kind of start tracking in your philosophy and your narrative in order to establish the teaching styles and the philosophies that you would want to see at country, and vice versa? Like, how does country help support the clubs so that we can become a stronger powerhouse?
Well, I think, everybody's going to have a different playing style, and different leagues are going to be at different stages. As you said, USL, a start-up league, but I think can be massively complementary to NWSL in terms of, like I said, I think the US are producing less under 23-year-olds that have got diverse experiences at both club and country. You might have a lot of under 23s that sat on the bench in NWSL that we absolutely need to start developing. And I think that the combinations of both leagues, most importantly, will create the development pathways, giving players opportunities not only to just like daily training and regular sort of competition, but hopefully increased competition with even better players coming into both leagues. And I think for me, the most important thing is that players are developing in those situations first and foremost, and whatever their clubs and their coaches are asking of them. And then when they come to us, that recognition that, okay, so how do we then build on top of that development? And having been a club coach for so long, I realise the importance of what they do day in, day out. So from my end, I don't want to change that.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that they're in environments that are challenging them. And in return, I hope that when they come to the national team, my job is to try and put together a team over about somewhere between 12 and 15 odd games a year where we're trying to compete to win a World Cup in a few years' time and hopefully develop a bigger playing pool and those experiences that we can then push them back into their clubs, and those experiences in of itself improve what's going on in the domestic game. So I think we sit side by side. I think the relationships are so important, but yeah, one that I think is harmonious and complementary rather than
Mhm.
one is ahead of the other or those things. I always felt very, really, really strongly that club and country should be sitting side by side, not going against each other. They're there to complement. They're there to help each other.
No, I agree with you. And one of the learning points, and I know for me personally, and I know that you're exploring this as well too, is like the concept of a professional women's footballer has changed dramatically over the past 3 to 5 years with the investment of money, right? So players are full professional athletes getting paid well, right? Facilities are exclusive to the women and they're no longer sharing or secondary for that. But what I've also noticed, and love to get your thoughts on, is the player itself is changing. Where before in the United States, as you know, we have the collegiate system because of Title IX, and that's where one would argue is like the Division II or the Division III, if you were going to title it anything, right, of a development phase. Now I'm experiencing and even seeing players that are not even going to go to college and are aspiring to go straight to the professionals. Like in our infrastructure from youth all the way to the pros, and knowing that the world's going to change easily in the next 3 to 5 years, like what do you anticipate as some of those positives, and at the same time, how do we protect the game as we grow the game and the player?
Yeah, I believe in choice, freedom of choice, whatever that looks like. I was asked the question earlier about what my thoughts were around players playing dual sports and how long they should do that for. And
Hmm.
what I've learned over the years is that you want happy people first and foremost. So if it's, in someone's best interest to skip the collegiate system and go straight to pro, then so be it. Equally, if someone decides they want to go through the collegiate route, to best support that. I think diversity is the most important part. It isn't about just having an entire playing pool that
Hmm.
goes, through one system the same way. Some might be pro, some might go college, some may play domestically, some may play internationally. I think all of those things, develop a healthy sort of football ecosystem, and most importantly, keeps people in the game. I'm all for like making sure that people have a freedom of choice in whatever they want to do, and in my capacity, my job is just to make sure I support the athletes in whatever decisions they take, and know that I'm here to try and create the best possible national team I can, but I can only do that if it's made up of people that are really happy doing what they're doing.
You're saying making up the people of kind of diverse side. So I think I know one of the most important things that I learned from you, and have learned from you, is that success isn't essentially a ladder. Anyone who plays shoots and ladders, right? You sometimes climb a ladder, you go down a slide, you go left, you go right, right? It's all a lattice. It's not straight up and
Exactly.
down. And I love it, right? Because you have all of these awards, right? The recent ones, which congratulations and well deserved, with right the FIFA, the Ballon d'Or, all of those awards that you just received. Yet in this your press conference the other day, you made a statement that you're still working on yourself and you have plans for yourself. And I'm sitting there being like, great, what are those plans? So today I'm get to ask you, what are those plans that you're working on yourself when you're the best in the world?
You know what? I never stop learning, and I think to be competitive and to perform at the highest level, no matter who you are, you have to do that. I think for me, the important things are, doing things that interest me, and I very much want to continue to develop my leadership and leadership style. So I have several meetings scheduled with some top level coaches, both in football and beyond, to make sure now I'm not in a club environment every day. I really give myself the space to be able to learn from others around how they manage some of the many things that you have to manage in this job. It's not just always about what types of sessions people do, but everything from how they manage a challenging situation to managing the media to understanding what they have to do for their own wellness and well-being. And I don't just like to limit that to my own industry. I absolutely like to go into business. Um, and I've got some different situations where I'm part of different leadership groups where um, they are with different leaders from different sectors. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
learning an awful lot about, I don't know, how they manage meetings, how long they last, how do they know that that's the most productive way to do something. So for me, I'm pushing. I really want to push myself this year so I can go up a level, and um, there'll be many, many different ways I'll do that. But I want to be even more intentional about getting around the world to see the very best where I can, so that I can pick up whatever little nuggets that are really, really going to matter to help me be the best I can to help the team to keep producing performances.
So you're on top of the ladder. You're about to go down the slide to continue to climb a higher ladder.
Yeah.
You use the word you're a holistic leader. I love that word, but I also love the word you're a servant leader. Right? There's people that people want to run through a wall for, and you create that environment, and kind of creating this new U23 kind of group and having the camp together for the first time and having that bigger pool. How much are you going to also able to create, or at least are you focusing or would be able to want to focus on creating like infrastructures that even beyond your time as a leader that you want to create that are cornerstones that will stay that may not exist right now, but you would like to see in the U.S. soccer program for the women's side?
Yeah, I think I want to leave, the legacies I always like to leave behind are leaving the team in an even better place. Like I talk about this so many times. If I'd have left Chelsea and Chelsea were bottom of the league right now, I'd have fouled.
Mm,
That's how I look at it. I wouldn't have done my job well enough if I hadn't have left a roster for the next coach to be able to come in. Yes, of course, to put their own stamp on it. Ideally, for them to take it another level, but to leave a foundation that is solid enough for somebody to go from. That's always what my goal is, and my second goal is probably always to put the women's game front and center of everything I do. Like I've been given this, incredible privilege in life to be able to coach in a sport at a high level. That I want to make sure I leave this in the best place possible for the next generation. So I take my position seriously, not just on the pitch, but off the pitch. And I want to make sure I maximize every, I don't know, privilege that I have and turn that into something that keeps the game growing. I think they're probably my two big motivators. And I hope that when my time is up, whenever that is, that I've done that. And if I have, then you know what, at the end of the day, I do it because I have to live with myself and that those are the values and the standards that I want to hold dear. So, I want to keep doing those things.
So the those you've already done it with Chelsea for sure, because Sonia's doing an incredible job off the roster you built and adding her flair and her stamp, and that's great to see her do that distinction. And I really love to see that they hired Sonia in that position. I know it's something that I'm passionate and was kind of really eye opening to me, looking for female coaches in the space. And developing professional female coaches in the space. I know, right, your history and people have talked to you about it, the ups and the downs and the trajectory of it. But one of the things we always focus on the players, but really kind of want to get your insight on how do we bring more women coaches into the game, like actual taxable offenses. Because like I talk to some and they're like, hey, I'm comfortable in the college scene, like the professional scene, might not be, or there's the fear to it. What do you think how do we get female coaches more into the game and more into the professional side of it? And what would you tell them to continue? I know it's a 3-part question, but what would you tell them to continue to pursue that?
Yeah, it's not easy. I think you have to look at the whole system in the first part. Like, first of all, are we creating an adequate coach education system that is reflective of the women's game or coaching in the women's game? Probably my first point. Second will be, have we set up and created both a support system in and around it beyond the college system? Because I think the college system actually does a good job of this, so that we create sort of maybe flexible working in the women's game. A lot of women, especially if they become mums, want to have the right work-life balance, and I'm not altogether sure that coaching at the pro level is the easiest thing to do. So maybe we have to think out of the box a little bit about having co-coaches or that are in head coaching positions, so that we can keep women there. And then thirdly is like, actually there are women there, but are we trusting them enough to put them into positions? There's plenty of assistant coaches that are coaching across the pro game that maybe don't get elevated into the top jobs in the same way their male counterparts do. And I've always seen that. And I think those that own football clubs have to be braver about that, to put more women in charge. And that's probably something I'd like to see more of.
And because it was one thing that was eye-opening to me, right? I purposely and specifically focused on that, right, when we built out our technical side on that here. And that was, I think, one of the things that I had heard was like the professional world is a lot more difficult. So is that something you're going to be able to work with U.S. Soccer on, maybe some best practices, right? The FA's come out with some benchmarks and standards that they wanted to. Are those things that you're going to be able to delve in and kind of, because I like that concept of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, at least I'll do what I can to influence that. I definitely will play a part in challenging that narrative, and I hope that together we can sort of really, I don't know, it's not one thing you have to do, it's multiple things. And I definitely think that's something I will grow a stronger voice in during my tenure.
And please do so, because there's definitely, I know a lot of clubs who are interested in that and kind of hit a couple walls like I did, which was fascinating. I was learning quite a bit over this. But as moms, both of us love Harry, and I know that next time you guys got to come to Tampa. Harry, Quinn will get along, and there's plenty to do here in Tampa. It's a lot warmer than Chicago, but definitely love to have you down. And thank you again for being our first, ever on, the Soccer Podcast USA, as we really kind of just break into really like developing the game here. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for being here, and just thank you for continuing to elevate the game. When you think you're at the top of the world, you continue to push the envelope, and we can't thank you anymore for that.
Oh, no problem. Happy to be here, and Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. That's it for our very first episode of the Soccer Podcast USA. Huge thank you to Emma Hayes for joining us for the first inaugural one. As we heard, setting the bar high, always being a learner, lover of the game, and a leader in it. Don't forget to follow us on the Soccer Podcast USA as we continue to bring you big names and bold opinions. That's it for our show. See you later.